And tell me a bit about the decision, why Brazil? Because a lot of players from Europe, they go to chase kind of big paychecks in Saudi and MLS. What was the draw here? Was it the fandom?
The competitiveness about it, it's still high level football.
English players should consider the Brazil league as a move. It's not very crazy. Have you felt that yet?
I think I've seen it from the first day, to be honest.
Style compares here to Korea, to the UK. What differences have you noticed there?
Yeah, it's a lot different. I've never experienced it before. Fans going to the training ground and going into training.
Ronaldinho, gol de Brasil. Brasil le gana a la Argentina por 3-0.
E aí, pessoal, por esses dias a ziquezira reinou completamente por aqui. Meu computador praticamente novo faleceu, consequentemente tive que resolver várias coisas e por isso perdi muita coisa relevante essa semana, como Neymar parando a Argentina e o Cruzeiro vencendo Boca. Enfim, voltamos aqui com algumas gambiarras, né? E vamos acompanhar uma entrevista bem bacana de Jesse Lingard para BBC Inglesa sobre as primeiras impressões dele de tudo o que ele está vivendo aqui no Brasil.
Yes, Jesse Lingard came through the youth system at Manchester United before making over 100 appearances for the first team. His career to date has also seen him play for England at the 2018 World Cup and enjoy a spell with FC Seoul in South Korea. He's now embarked on a new adventure, playing for the legendary Corinthians in Brazil. BBC News South America correspondent Ione Wells has been to meet him in Sao Paulo, and in a wide-ranging chat they discussed his time in Seoul and how Lingard's Portuguese is coming along. He started though by explaining what it means to be the first Englishman to play in Brazil's top flight.
It's an amazing feeling, obviously before the move, I knew about the club, I know how big it was, so for me to come here was a real honour, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And tell me a bit about the decision, why Brazil? Because a lot of players from Europe, they go to chase kind of big paychecks in Saudi and MLS. What was the draw here? Was it the fandom, the fact this is a genuinely competitive league, the status of Brazil as a football nation? What was the kind of pull factor for you?
Yeah, I think the competitiveness about it, it's still high level football. For me, I still, think I can play, at a high level. So, for me, it's just about the competition. Like I say, how big the club is here, how big the league is. So for me, I still want to test myself. I still had obviously offers on the table, but for me, I still want to test myself out there.
Do you think other English players should consider the Brazil league as a move? It's not a very common one.
Yeah, it's not common, but it's it's different, and I like to be different. I like to, like to test myself, and for other English players and maybe European players, I think it's a really good move. Yeah.
And I read that Memphis Depay, your former teammate at United, called you up. What was it he said to you that made you think, right, I'm going to do this? Yeah,
no, we spoke a little bit, on text. Obviously, before I came, and he mentioned, about the club and what it's about, and it kind of obviously, drew me a little bit more. But to have obviously him here, he's helped me, a lot as well. When I first arrived, and like I say, now it's about settling in and adapting.
Was there something he kind of said to you that convinced you, or made your mind up?
Not really. It's a little bit private conversation, But no, like I say, he's helped me a lot, since I came here. And like I say, he's just told me how good it is, and how he enjoyed it when he first came, and how he adapted, quickly. So for me, it's just literally about adapting.
And what are your first impressions of Brazil? Have you managed to kind of explore life here a bit? Has it been all training? What's kind of struck you?
Do you know what? I think that the schedule's been jam-packed at the moment. We've just been training every day. I think we've had like 2 days off in a month or something like that. We've got a game every 3 days, so the exploring part we'll have to wait till summer, I think. At the moment it's just games and training, which is it's been good. I've needed that. I've not played since 10th of December, so I've needed to get my fitness and catch up on fitness.
And how have you found the football style compares here to Korea, to the UK? What differences have you noticed there?
Yeah, it's a lot different. It's very physical. I've seen early on from training when I first came, how physical it is. There's still a tactical element, to that as well. Obviously, with the new manager coming in, He's been very hands-on, with the players, and he's very good, one-to-one, which obviously, gets the best out of me anyway when we have a manager that's one-to-one. And like I say, he's been, very, very tactical with us.
And Corinthians fans are known as some of the most passionate in the world. They call themselves crazy. Have you felt that yet?
I think I've seen it from the first day, to be honest. Obviously, the stadium, home games, away games, they give the all 100%. When you're not doing so good, of course, they've been to the training ground, and you see how, like I say, how passionate they are, for us to do well and win. And it only gives us a more reason to win, on a match day.
Has there been any kind of particular intense thing you've experienced from fans here?
Not really. I think just them coming to the training ground.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you're in a bad situation, I've never experienced it before. Fans coming to the training ground and coming into the training ground and speaking to us. I've never experienced that, so that was a bit different. But it's probably deserved. Premiers deserve to be at the top. Always and winning games. So I understand where they come from.
Any Portuguese phrases that you've learned on the pitch?
I can't say them though.
One.
No, obviously, the bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite.
Good.
Obrigado, por favor.
Is it ever a struggle kind of when you're put into a new place, people speaking a different language, adapting to that on the pitch, is that different?
Yeah, obviously the only time was obviously Korea, which obviously I had translator. But here obviously no translator, so some of the players speak a little bit English, and they translate a little bit what the coach says. So it's obviously different again, and learning, obviously pick up Portuguese and learn Portuguese while I'm here. Learning that, I think it's obviously good because the Korean language when I was there is is very difficult. Obviously I picked up on a few words, but I feel like here I could learn the language.
And your debut was at the Maracana, the legendary stadium. Came on, it was 2-0 down. You had a shot. And talk me through those first few moments on that pitch. How did that feel?
It's just amazing to be back on the pitch. Like I say, it's been a few months since I've been on the pitch, and training your owns, it can be a bit annoying a little bit. Obviously, you want to be with teammates and around the fans. So to be back on the pitch was an amazing feeling.
And Maracana in particular, how did that kind of feel being in there? It's such a famous stadium, I guess.
Yeah, like I say, it's an amazing feeling, and for me it's just about winning. Obviously coming on difficult circumstances. I still had to try and perform to my best of my ability and to the highest level, and help the team. But obviously we fell short.
And you've talked a bit about how that passion from fans can be amazing, but it can also be something that's quite difficult, that scrutiny that fans give, and you've spoken before a bit about how that impacts you as players. How do you manage that? How do you deal with that pressure?
Sometimes it's hard, but you got to be mentally strong and resilient. Like I say, it's a huge club, so there's always going to be big expectation on game day to win games. And like I say, when you fall short, of course you're going to get the scrutiny. It can be hard for a lot of people, but I've been through that phase of my life, and like I say, now I'm at a point where I can be strong-minded and take the criticism.
And you mentioned that it's been a bit of a turbulent time at Corinthians, new manager, Memphis Depay's injured at the moment. Do you feel there's quite a lot of pressure on you personally to kind of help boost the club, turn things around a bit at the moment?
To be fair, I've not felt any pressure, to be honest. Like I said, I've come in, tried to be myself, tried to adapt to the situation. Like I say, it's been hard, and all we can do is keep working hard on the training field and showing up on a match day.
And what about Brazil? You've played a lot with Brazilian players here and against them, and obviously you've got people like Cunha, Casemiro at United as well, doing well this season. What do you think Brazil's chances are?
I think they're strong sides, to be honest. England, Brazil, France. I think strong sides. I watched the France-Brazil game a few weeks back. It was a really good game, interesting game. And yeah, I feel like they've got a good chance as well. I think with the Neymar situation, if we can get back into the squad, it'll be interesting, very interesting. Yeah.
You might face Neymar potentially if you play Santos and he's on. How do you feel about that?
We spoke a little bit. I see him sometimes in the summer. We speak a little bit. Obviously, I've not spoken to him, since I've been here. But yeah, it's always good to play against, you know, top class players and world class players. You know, you can test yourself against some guys.
I want to ask you as well, you absolutely rinsed Rashford once for talking in the tunnel to Neymar about the weather.
Question 5. What did Marcus and Neymar talk about in the tunnel at Wembley? The beautiful weather, the London nightlife, which he knows nothing about, and the night boots. Do not even. No. The weather.
Yeah.
The weather.
Yeah?
You're right, Neymar. Yeah, it's sunny, innit?
No.
Yo,
You're not.
Neymar, good, yeah? Sunny, innit?
No.
What?
What would you, if you do play him, what are you going to say to him in the tunnel?
I think there'd be too many memes about that, to be honest. No, I won't mention that. I think he knows anyway.
Don't talk about the weather.
I might mention the Brazilian over here. I might say
I mean, it's
about
sunny here, to be fair. So
yeah,
it's
it is sunny.
more of a talking point. I suppose I just kind of want to finish as well a bit about kind of where do you see yourself in 5 years, or what's the next couple of years look like for you? What would be success here, do you think?
I don't like thinking too far ahead, to be honest. You know, my God, I like to live in a moment. You know, enjoy my. Of course, you got to think a little bit. But for me, like I say, I'm enjoying my time here. You know, I'm happy. You know, I'm playing the game that I've loved since, you know, a young boy. So, you know, for me, you know, happy in my situation at the moment.
Is there kind of one thing that you really want to get out of this period, this chapter at Corinthians?
I think just the win. I think that's the most important thing. Trophies are, of course, important, you know, in football. And, you know, I've came here to lift the trophy and win. I think that's the main aim.
Main aim to win the league or Copa Libertadores?
I think,
any
I think Libertadores would be huge. That's a big tournament over. I think anything will do. You know, a few trophies will be good. But I think anything will do.
And any Brazilian player that you're kind of particularly if you had to pick a Brazilian player, who's your favourite, or who do you feel inspired by?
I think Neymar, to be honest. I think Neymar, Ronaldinho. Obviously, we've seen Ronaldinho a couple of times as well. You know, and he's almost such a humble guy, down to earth. So yeah, I think it'd be out of them too.